You wasted 12 years of your lives going to school. Stefan Molyneux was right to say that homework in public schools exists in order to drive a wedge in the relationship between the parents and children. You're not learning anything more by doing homework, but it's something that society religiously believes in. Homework exists in order to have the parents pester their children about doing homework, and thus generating friction. What's funny is, I am so intelligent that I think I was about 16 or 15 when I thought of the same thing. The school is purposely creating strife in the family, because the government is all about destroying families. So any policy or cultural change that drives a wedge in the relationship of family members is a good thing to the government. You ever think that if school wasn't creating bullshit problems in your life, you wouldn't have had all this suffering and arguments in your family because of grades and homework? You ever think about who the fuck is the state, the government, or whatever, to come into your life and force you to participate in an activity, and if you suck in that activity, it will cause your parents to turn on you? Well, I have thought of that, and apparently the government believes that it is something it is entitled to do. Now let's think of all the time-wasting activities you had to do in school, of which you do not benefit in the present whatsoever. Let's bring some up. Do you remember everything you learned in history class in public school without having to Google it? You probably don't. Do you have everything from algebra and other math classes memorized so you could solve algebraic equations right now without looking up how? No, I bet you don't. What about any other subject you studied in a public school, like science? No, you probably have to look up that stuff on the internet too, if you need to know. So what was the point of doing all that for 12 years? What was the point of memorizing all that stuff for 12 years? Did you have to take a language class in the school? And are you able to speak that language right now? What about PE? Did the PE class make you strong? Did you gain muscle and endurance from activities you performed in PE? Did you lose weight if you were fat? No? You know what you did in PE? You had to change clothes at the start of class, and then change clothes again at the end of class. And you did it all for a class that's only 50 minutes long, and sometimes you spent 20 minutes of it in a locker room just changing. Also, are you an expert at playing a sport from taking PE? Have you become an excellent fast runner? If most, if not all of your answers to these questions have been no, no, and no, then it really puts in perspective and makes you ask, what the fuck was the point of any of us even being in a public school? And what exactly was the purpose of a public school? Well, think back to all the assemblies you have attended at school. Was there an anti-drug assembly? Yes. I think they had sheriffs come in and show off drug-sniffing dogs. They were showing off the might of the state. But one most important thing they never brought up, they never hinted at, is the question as to why drugs should be illegal at all, and why should we have to accept that they are illegal? Why shouldn't the kids have the attitude of, how about it's none of your business if I smoke pot? And I should stab a knife into the throat of your drug-sniffing canine. Oh, that thought never came up. That's because free thinking isn't allowed. One thing they will never teach you at school is to question the state and the laws that are created by the state. In fact, you might get in trouble, and they will look immediately to shut you down if you do begin to question things. See, I think now, with this example, it's beginning to seem obvious what public schooling is really about. Let's get back to all the time you've wasted. For example, did you need to attend an assembly where an old, lying Jew lady would be trotted out on stage, and for an hour she would talk about her experiences in the Holocaust? Then in history class, they would show you all these movies about slavery. And you really see just how full of shit those movies were, how they were nothing but absolute lies and propaganda. And you would walk out of history class in high school, you would walk out believing that the white race was the worst race on the world, and that it's a plague on the entire world. Funny thing is, because I'm kind of a sociopath, I didn't develop white guilt like those dumb liberals. So being a slight sociopath actually saves you from being manipulated by all that shit. So let's get back to all the time you've wasted in school. So you were sitting there copying answers and questions out of textbooks and writing them down on paper, then turning those papers in for a grade, while the teacher would sit around looking at the clock or clicking around on the computer or something. And what did those activities do for you? Nothing. You don't remember a single fucking thing you were copying out of those textbooks right now, do you? So why were you there? Why were you dedicating all those hundreds of thousands of hours to doing that crap? What about all those assemblies where these school clubs would, show off all kinds of performances, like cheerleaders performing, or the band performing, or whatever? Did you need to watch all that shit? Did you need to spend your time watching that shit? It must be nice that, they got to create a captive audience for all that shit. Stefan Molyneux very accurately said that school is about creating an emotional state that is a combination of boredom and fear. You are bored there, but you're also afraid of what might happen if you are defiant, if you don't complete all these worthless assignments, if you don't pass all these worthless tests. Now, a lot of people could mitigate all that if they have had a good social life at school. But that's something I wasn't allowed to have. I wasn't good enough to have a girlfriend. I wasn't good enough to have a circle of friends who respected me. And you also end up bullied. So that way you end up developing some very traumatic memories, but zero benefits exist to offset those traumatic memories. Like, I got bullied for praising Hitler, and that was before I had any evidence that But anyway, even though I didn't know that, I just wanted to piss people off by saying that Hitler was a good man. So for all that, I am ready to be homeless now, because the school got me nothing. And I don't know if I should be complaining about the school being worthless the way it is, because if they truly graded me on my abilities, I would have failed almost every class. And it wouldn't have mattered even if I did. Nothing in my life would be different. You see, I never understood algebra, but the way it worked, the way I passed, is if you did your homework and turned it in, it was an automatic A grade. If you turned it in half finished, then you got a C or a D, depending on how much of it you have finished. But like if it was a quarter unfinished, then maybe you got a B instead of an A. What was great about that is that you could get every single answer wrong on your homework and learn nothing and still get an A for turning it in. So there would be 4 homework assignments a week, and then you took a quiz once a week in the middle of the week. And the quiz was the only thing that was honestly graded. And I usually got a D or an F on it. So for a week I would get grades that would be like A, then a D or an F, and then an A and another A. And those would be my grades for the week. Well, if you're getting all those A's, the one F that you get on the weekly quiz doesn't fucking matter. It all just averages out to you getting a C for the entire course, and that's a passing grade, so on you go. Now, what about when you had to write journal entries or like diary entries or something in English class? Sometimes the teacher wanted you to write what's on your mind, or to answer some kind of a question or a theme that a teacher put on the board. Except there was no point to such an exercise. What is it that you have now that you have gained from doing that? I had to actually fail those assignments because I would have gotten in trouble for writing what's honestly on my mind. The school might have pushed me into getting psych therapy. So you see how stupid and pointless and useless schools are? It's no wonder that I wrote in my novel that James Grider wants to shoot up his school. School shooters should actually be appreciated in this world. For all we know, they might be some of the most brilliant people in the world who were forced into self-destruction by the system. Just like the communist Jews would make sure that they killed the most brilliant people in both Russia and Germany. And also, don't you hate that in school they made you scared enough not to cheat? I write in my book that James Grider cheats on almost everything at school. He goes on the internet to have his algebra homework problems solved by a computer. And he's not cheating because he's a retard. On the contrary, he cheats because he is intelligent, because he doesn't want to waste his time on playing along with all this bullshit. He realized the whole scheme isn't about learning, and it's not really about him because the government or the system cares about him. What he realized is that he's really in school for the sake of those who rule the world, who want to use the institution of school to indoctrinate him into being a good slave. So he saw past the veneer and opted out of playing the game. Let's think to more wasted time. What about the class where I had to make some videos, where a class that was dedicated to audiovisual, AV, and it's a class that I almost failed because I didn't know what to make videos about. What a joke, right? Funny how they were trying to teach you to do something in school where you had to make something like a vlog, and then technology changed and every smartphone got a camera and YouTube came into existence, and suddenly people are making videos and vlogs naturally without help from public school. And by the way, that class didn't teach you anything about, things like lighting or framing a shot or anything like that. And the teacher looked like he didn't give a fuck, like he was only doing it for a paycheck. You all wasted your life in a public school. And on top of it, I was forbidden from having a social life in school because people didn't like me. So when are you going to make the government pay dearly for their bullshit?